Welcome to Career Pod, your Audible career fair podcast. With your host, Dana Francis.
Just under 2 years ago, my better half bought a GoPro, and I think that both of us have played around with the idea of vlogging, but honestly, it's just a lot of work, and the two of us, unlike our daughter, are pretty camera shy. Podcasting is the perfect medium for me because I like hiding behind a microphone. There's no makeup required. I just grab a cup of tea and find a guest that's a lot more interesting than myself, and I'm good to go. Normally, I have to go out into the interweb world and find these amazingly interesting people, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work. But I was really lucky that Michelle reached out to me at first. And after watching her YouTube channel, I just knew I had to have her on the show. What she is doing is so freaking fantastic. She's basically started this whole social media revolution, I want to call it, through Instagram, YouTube, and her website. She is an active advocate for women in the construction trades. As a site engineer, she knows a thing or two about working in a male-dominated industry. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. I know I did. Today we are joined by Michelle Hans. She is the founder of This Is a Man's World UK and a site engineer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem, my pleasure.
What attracted you to the world of engineering?
Okay, so I'd like to say it was something that I've always wanted to do since I was a child, but I would in fact be lying. The truth is I went to university, finished my degree in geography and needed a job over the summer. Basically, I wanted to go to film school, which completely unrelated to geography. And a friend of my brother's offered me a job in a company that he was working for to go and work in the construction industry as a materials tester, so specifically within the landfill and the recycling industry. I went along, I started doing the job. It was quite full on and intense, but I really enjoyed it. And I ended up doing that job for about 4 or 5 years. I used to work alongside a setting out stroke site engineer, and basically one day I just thought actually I'd quite like to do that job, which basically sent me along the route of going down to London, retraining, doing a course in setting out and surveying, and then since then I've been on site doing engineering and I've never looked back. So I kind of fell into it is the short answer.
Is there other ways of getting into this industry, like whether it be through work experience or? Yeah,
definitely. So my route is probably a little bit different to most. I kind of got in because I'd already had probably about 6 or 7 years worth of experience in the construction industry. So I kind of knew how things worked. But I suppose the main route that people take is to do a civil engineering degree. That's kind of one way to go. And the other way is more vocational, so doing an apprenticeship. So basically just getting work experience on a site and then being an assistant site engineer, learning that way. And then also, part-time going to college as well. So there is definitely 2 routes you can take into engineering.
I was watching one of your videos and I just love that you were like, yeah, I basically volunteered my time to get the experience that I needed, because it really shows that you're taking the initiative.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the one thing that I try and say to anyone that sends me emails or messages and they say, I can't, this is quite a common one. I get messages from graduates saying, I can't get a job. How can you get a job without experience? But how can you get experience? And I always just say to them, well, look, I really had to hustle at the start. So I did the course and then basically no one would employ me because I didn't have any experience. I had, 6 or 7 years worth of experience in construction, but not on the site engineer's tools or doing that particular role. So what I did is I phoned up a few of my old work colleagues and I just said, look, I'll come and work for you. I'll literally just shadow you for 2 weeks, free labour. No questions asked. I just need experience and I need something to put down on my CV. And, 2 or 3 of them jumped at the chance. Obviously, it's free labour. And I went to a site and did exactly that, shadowed an engineer and literally just asked them questions like non-stop. I wrote everything down and just absorbed as much information as I could. And after I did it, actually was only one job. Once I did that, I then got my first job. And that person that taught me within those 2 weeks and let me shadow them then became a bit of a mentor. So it just benefited me all round. I would say to anyone that gets in contact with me saying they're having a hard time getting into the industry, work experience really works for me. I was learning a lot by putting myself out there and going and shadowing another engineer for 2 weeks.
I don't think a lot of people realize it's not just hard for women in construction. It's hard for men too, especially when you're new to something and you don't have that experience. You're going to see a lot of rejection. There's a lot of safety that's involved in the construction industry that they don't want just any Joe or Jane off the street coming in and doing it.
I'd completely agree with that. It's exactly the same for man and woman. In fact, the UK at the moment, there aren't enough engineers and there's a mass cry for people to get into the industry. So they are doing their best to get people in the door and out onto a site. So the opportunities, if they're ever going to be there, it's going to be now.
Would you say that there's much competition for work right now?
I'd say no, whatever level you're at. So beginner engineer right the way through to senior engineer. There are so many projects kicking off in the UK, big projects, that you can pretty much, if you've got experience, actually, to be fair, even if you haven't got experience, there's apprenticeships knocking around. But for example, I'm a freelance engineer, so I work for myself and just pick up contracts. I can take a phone call today and be on a site tomorrow.
Would you say that the job forecast looks good for the future, or is this just kind of like a boom right now?
I think with construction, everything's on a cycle. So obviously we were the first thing to crash when the recession hit. But yeah, I firmly believe there's probably at least another good 5 years in the industry. And it's still booming rates. Wages are going up and up. So for me, I'd say there's a fair few amount of years left of it being, a boom industry.
What could one expect to earn on average? And I know this is going to vary dependent on a lot of different factors, but I guess quality of life. Can you afford to live in an apartment versus can you afford to live in a house? Okay, so wages, yeah, I'd expect a UK engineer to be working directly with a company to be on anything between 35,000 and 45,000. And if you were freelance like myself, then a day rate of between £300 to up to £500 a day. So I guess Canadian terms, that's double. You double it, I guess. Close to. I love that your currency is pounds. I feel like it just has so much more substance to it. I wish. Packing on the pounds, baby. Yeah, I wish. Can you tell us what a day at work might look like for you? I know it's going to be different every day. Yeah, a typical day of me getting up around about 6:30, try and get to site for a 7:30 start. I am always a little bit late. I hope no one who's ever going to employ me in the future listens to this. I would normally get into the office and sit down at the computer, check emails, then set up my kit out on site. And depending on the workflow for the day, I might be entering information into my kit ready to go out and either survey or set out items for the guys. There might be a site meeting and then just basically be outside and whatever anyone wants, be at their beck and call. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the whole day. And it tends to be a bit of a whirlwind because I'm doing that many things at once. It was really comforting watching your YouTube channel and being like, oh, wow, it's a shit show over there, too. That's awesome. Oh, yeah. Every single day, nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone's screaming. Everyone's stressed. That's what I love about it is you get to the end of the day and you don't realise that you've done a full day's worth of work because it's just gone so quickly. What are some of the things that you love about your job? Being outside, the social side of the job, that's the one thing that I always come back to and the one thing I miss. I can have a really crappy contract where I'm not enjoying the work as much, but having a laugh with the guys or girls, if there's any on site, and that social side of it is what really, for me, that's what makes the job. What would you say are some of the challenges you run into? Like the kind of things that if someone wanted to get into this profession and they weren't necessarily good at those aspects, you would maybe sway them to try another profession? I would say if you get stressed out quite easily or you find it hard to control your emotions, working on site might be a really difficult job for you just because everyone knows it's a dangerous industry and it's high stress levels. So I think once you can deal with those stresses, then the job becomes
quite enjoyable. I thrive a little bit off stress. So if I don't have stress, then I get bored easily. Yeah, so I think certain personalities or personality traits are needed to work in construction. I think you need to be quite thick-skinned. You need to be able to let things go and cope with stress. It is something, I think I've learned to deal with stress over the years, but I think I've also been quite a laid-back person. So I managed to let a lot of things go, which if you're not that type of person, then you might really struggle.
Is there a good work-life balance in this career?
I hope so.
Now that you're a mom?
Yeah, I really hope so. To be honest with you, because the industry is so busy at the moment, engineers are expected to work, 10, 12-hour shifts. That's something that I used to do because you're either chasing the money or just trying to keep up with the workflow. I am not sure about work-life balance. It's something that I'm going to be documenting now that I'm actually re-entering work. I hope that I can find the solution and the right balance and I don't have to leave the industry. And that's why I'm really excited to document the next chapter in my journey for engineering so that I can show people that actually, yes, there is a good work-life balance. So, I'd say watch this space.
Some of the tips that other women have given me from the industry is that they've hired house cleaners and food planning, and you'll find a way to hopefully survive.
Yeah, for me, it's just when the long hours are there and you come home and you're tired. I used to come home and just crash, and now I come home and there's going to be a 7-month-old baby that needs taken care of. So, yeah, it's going to be different, but I just hope, I think the sleep thing is bothering me, being able to function. At the end of the day, I think I just have to adapt and, like you say, make things kind of work for me.
Can you tell us a little about This Is a Man's World and why you decided to start this social media platform, blog, vlog, website? Like, this is just a ton of work for you, and you're a mom as well. So what's the passion behind this project?
When I left university, I actually wanted to go into acting, which is why I went to film school. And I've kind of always done that alongside my engineering work. And it got to a certain point, and actually I realised that the reason why I was drawn to film and the creative side was because I actually like telling a story. So I was watching a lot of YouTubers, and vlogging was a way for me to create films pretty much every day. But the story was my story, and I was just documenting my journey engineering. And I didn't really realise, how unusual it was. And it was only until I actually sat back and thought, actually, there aren't that many women in engineering. And I started to get messages from people saying that they wanted to get into engineering. They'd seen my YouTube videos. And then I started up This Is a Man's World because, it's my journey of me being trapped in a man's world and surviving. And by being able to document my story, hopefully I will either inspire others to follow suit and join the industry, or provide them with a little bit of help or insight. So it was basically to start a conversation and a community, as well as document my own journey. And from that, it's just expanded out with the usual, Instagram, Twitter, and then the blog. And most recently, I decided to do some merchandise. I don't know why. This is like a crazy idea, and I have zero time to do it. But I just wanted to, maybe some T-shirts or something, so that anyone in an industry who kind of feels like they're out there alone, that they're actually not, and they're part of a community, and make it a little bit fun. So that's the whole idea behind the website and all the different strings to it. I probably really should just concentrate on one thing, but that's me. My mind just explodes and I tend to just do a million different things at once.
Well, I love it too. The stickers, I love having stickers for my hard hat, or at least on the sites where they still let you have stickers on your hard hats. It's kind of like self-identifying with your community.
Yeah, exactly. And that nothing would make me more proud than to see, those stickers, like you say, on someone's helmet across the other side of the world, or them wearing a T-shirt and just, putting their hand up and saying, we're part of a community, and and just having that feeling that you're not alone. So that's the reason behind it. So I would have to send you some stickers.
Yay! I'll send you pictures of me with the stickers on my hard hat. Probably with grime all over my face. I don't know why. I'm always the dirtiest person on site. I touch my face so much throughout the day. And it's like, Dana, you have a mustache again. I'm like, oh, shit.
I know. I normally have to come home and my husband's like, you need to like hose yourself down outside before you come in the house because there's just mud caked everywhere.
Do you have any pieces of advice for someone looking to get into this profession?
Yeah, advice is cheap, I guess, but I'd say just have a go. Don't be afraid. Just step outside your comfort zone. I know it's really hard to do new things. And even now, for me, going back, I'll be starting a new job, a new contract. And there's always a little bit of fear that, A, I'm not good enough or that I'll make a mistake. And I'd just say to someone, just have a go, because you will always learn from every experience. And if you have a go and it's not for you, then fair enough. But don't make that assumption before giving it a go.
So you went a little viral on your side of the world. When I seen your construction baby bump pictures for the first time, it immediately brought back a flood of memories from when I was pregnant on the tools. Can you speak to why you found it so important to document and share this time in your life?
Yes. At the time of taking that picture, I took it before I was about to finish my pregnancy leave. And I wanted to have a memory, be able to show my future child that whilst I was carrying them, I was out doing a job that a lot of people wouldn't assume you could do being pregnant. And it just, I don't know, something a bit creative and cool. So I actually got my husband to take the picture and then, wrote on my belly that, I'm building two things at once. And it kind of came from a joke that I had on site. So during the latter part of my pregnancy, I had baby brain, and the lads would call me up on something and say, is this right? Or, Shell, you haven't done this yet, or whatever. And I'd say, look, come on, I'm building two things at once. What's your superpower? And it became a little bit of a joke. And so that's why I wrote it on my belly. So that's where it came from.
Do you still believe construction trades are a man's world?
Only in terms of statistics. So I think I mentioned this previously in my videos that less than 11% of the UK's construction industry are women. And of that 11%, only 1% are actually out on the construction site. So statistically, I'd say yes, but is it a man's world and that women shouldn't be in it? Not at all, which is why, ironically, I started "This is a man's world, she who dares wins" is kind of the motto, because at the moment it is, but it shouldn't be. That was kind of a really waffled way to explain that. But yeah, it's dominated by men at the moment. Well, the majority of people on site are guys, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be 50-50, because we are more than capable of doing pretty much every job. I think there's certain jobs that I couldn't do just on a physical side of things, so like bricklaying or roofing is something that I couldn't do because I literally probably couldn't lift enough. However, I found tons of women on Instagram that are doing these jobs and are more than capable of doing it. So I'd say, yeah, there's 0 jobs on a construction site that are predominantly just for men.
Recently, I can't remember, there's a woman in Australia that won like a prestigious award for bricklaying, and this was competing against men. So there's lots of things that people think that, women can't do, but there's lots of women out there doing them.
I think because we don't see, the media has a huge part to play in this, because we don't see images of women in construction. Not even images. We don't. If you walk past a construction site in the UK and you did spot a woman, it's an unusual sight. And, I do have people that walk past my sites and they'll look at me, and sometimes they'll come and chat to me and say, oh, like, what are you doing? And they're so intrigued by this. So I think it's just a case that we need to be changing people's perspectives and saying, but, you don't see many women on a construction site, but that doesn't mean that they don't belong there. And by trying to inspire the next generation to, say, oh, actually, I would like to work in construction, hopefully over the next 10, 20 years, this will change and it won't be an unusual sight to be walking past a construction site and see, a lot more women working and doing jobs. There's a female engineer book series for children, but again, it's like 1 in a million. The only thing that I will say is my brother bought me some, because I'm just a big kid at heart, he bought me some construction Lego last year, and I was just over the moon, because when I opened up the Lego set, the site manager was a woman, and I was like, wow, Lego, yes, you've really done something here. And that's like the only time where I've been like, yes, some girl's probably, hopefully going to pick up a Lego set and realise that the woman, the site manager is a woman, and that's epic. But yeah, you're right in terms of, well, I think we're just so far behind with kids, even in school. So I actually have spent some time doing some talks in some girls' schools. And when I go in and explain what I do, they're shocked. These are young girls, and some of them say, well, that's a man's job. And you're thinking, whoa, like, where's this come from? Is this like a parent thing? Is this through the media? And it's only when I've opened up the conversation with them and explained what I do, and then I get to the end of the talk and I say, okay, who wants to be an engineer now? And just a flood of hands go up in the air. And that's amazing. But it's taken, for me to go in there and to educate these girls about the job, for them to realise that it's something that it's an option that is open to them. And that's just, I think we're getting there. So the UK seems to be doing a fair amount of trying to promote women in construction, but this is mainly done promoting girls that are in work at the moment. I don't know how much is being done at like a grassroots level. So, young girls in schools. I'm hoping that there is more than I know about that's being done, but it's something again that I'm hoping to do in the future, is try and chip in and help promote through any way that I can. I think it needs to happen on all levels. And to be honest with you, the one thing that I'm quite interested in for the future of the work that I'm doing and the conversations that I'm having with the women is promoting girls to go into the industry is one way of changing things, but also is keeping the women and the girls that are in the industry, because what I found out recently, and this may or may not happen to me, is a lot of women don't actually stay in the industry. And I think we can't be promoting and trying to inspire girls to get into the industry if the dropout levels are there, because what's the point? Then someone's going to get halfway through a career and drop out. So we need to be shifting and changing the culture to ensure that once girls are in the industry, they stay in the industry.
I'm not sure if you've ever found this, but I've been on a few jobs where they've tried to pull me into the office to do like paperwork stuff. And I don't mind doing this stuff, like especially in Canada, if it's minus 45, hell yeah, I want to go do some paperwork.
Yeah.
But I feel sometimes that there's opportunities for women that there isn't necessarily for men. Like there might be a guy out on site that really wants to do that aspect of the work, but it's like just immediately because I'm a woman, they're like, oh, well, she's got to be good at paperwork. Let's get her in the office. And I've found that it's not so much, it's staying on the tools can be difficult. Like you have to be like, I want to be here and I want to stay here and this is what I want to do. And you have to convince other men on site of that. They have a hard time believing it sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And the whole like, oh, the weather's bad, why don't you go inside? Or like, I'll get someone else to do that. Yeah, I have had that. To be honest with you, I think because I'm normally the only engineer on site, I'm needed all the time. So it's not happened to me too often. But the one thing that it's quite a bit of a funny story. I had a apprentice engineer, young lad, who was 18, and I was teaching him how to use the kit, and he was working alongside me. And we were both setting out a road and putting in some heavy posts with a sledgehammer. And yeah, we're both doing the same job. And he came over and he's like, oh, why don't you let me do that? And you can just mark up with spray paint where you want them. So I was like, oh, okay, if someone's going to help out and do all the heavy labour, then every now and again, sure, be my guest. And then I realised quite quickly that, bless him, he didn't quite have the physical ability to get the post in far enough in the ground or quick enough for the job that was needed. I ended up having to go back and do the job myself. And it just kind of proved a little bit of a point in that, yeah, at the time at 18, he might have thought he was bigger and stronger than me, but the fact was he wasn't until that point in time. It was best that I did that job. And for him to do the spray paint, it was weird and it was funny, and we did have a laugh at it at the end of the day. But yeah, I guess it was just a natural assumption that I would prefer to do the easy job, whereas in fact for me it was a lot quicker if I just did it myself.
For a lot of people, it's just conditioning your body. Like I think a lot of women, when they get into the trades, they are not confident in what they're doing because their muscles haven't adjusted to that type of work, but it's just a matter of like you go 1 month, 2 months into it and all of a sudden you couldn't be on a grinder for more than 5 minutes and then you're on it for an hour.
Yeah, and there's some days where if I've been hammering in things for all day long, I'll get home and I'll be exhausted, and the next day I'll feel like, I'll be walking like John Wayne and just muscles are killing. And it comes with the job, and I don't even think guys get used to this. Like, I think, a bricklayer maybe because they're doing it all the time, but my brother's an engineer, and so it's really nice for me to relate my work to his, and I'll speak to him and he'll be like, oh, I had a really hard day yesterday and I'm aching all over. And he's really fit, he runs a lot and he does weights. So yeah, I think it's both men and women. We go through the same. Oh, and engineering, you're never really going to be doing anything too physical. I mean, I'm 5'5", and I used to go to the gym 3 days a week. I can't lift a huge amount, but I can definitely cope with what is needed for an engineer's role.
Do you think there's anything else we could be doing to encourage women to get into the trades?
Yeah, I think education. So I think, like I say, going in and speaking to young girls is really important. At school, I would never have thought I would go into engineering. I just think those kind of careers are not spoken about. So I think that's the major thing. And then educating girls on what the job involves. Because if you walk past a construction site and you just see a load of guys, a really dirty environment, and you don't show the positives of the job, so, the camaraderie, the social side of it, the rewards of seeing what you've built, working with a team, all the positives to the job, they need to be shared, which is what I'm trying to do via social media, so that girls go, oh, actually, that seems like a really, really good job and an enjoyable career. And so that they then consider it and follow that career path. So I think just education and communicate, and then support. Once women or girls are getting into the job, still now, if you're getting into engineering, you're most likely going to be the only female on site. And I think companies need to be providing young girls especially with the support network, so that if they do have a problem on site, that they have someone they can go and talk to who will help them, not necessarily in fixing a problem, but just providing support, I guess, on an emotional side to help them deal with certain situations. I think that's a big one that companies are lacking, because you might only have one. For example, pretty much every company I've worked for, I've been the only female out on site. And whilst there have been women in the offices, they can't relate to what I'm going through or what I've had to deal with on site. And that's really hard. So I've never had anyone other than my brother and fellow engineers to talk about issues. There's never been a woman to discuss that with. It's always been guys. And I'm not saying, guys can't be helpful. They can be hugely helpful. And to be fair, a lot of my close friends that I've worked with in the past that are engineers have been fantastic, and they've been a great support network for me. But I think companies can be doing a lot more than they probably are at the moment.
If you had the undivided attention of a high school class, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I'd say just have a go. Get outside of your comfort zone. Try not to be scared to try new things. I have this kind of thing that I say to my brother, and we joke about it, and it's kind of fake it until you make it. I think there's a lot of opportunities that I've taken, and I haven't 100% known that I've been able to do the job, and I figured it out once I've got there, because I think sometimes you have to take a leap of faith and have a little bit of confidence in yourself. And once you start moving forward and start doing jobs, then you just continue to learn. So I'd say just have a go, and if it becomes your passion and you love the job, then you'll just go from strength to strength. But don't think that you can't do it for whatever reason. Just have a go and decide afterwards.
Where can we find you online?
YouTube is where I am putting out probably the majority of my video content. Instagram, again, I put stuff out there every day. I'm trying to connect and communicate more with other women in trades via Instagram, and that's really fun. And then everything is pulled into connected to This Is a Man's World blog, which is www.thisisamansworld.co.uk. So if you land there, you can pretty much find everything else that exists regarding what I'm doing from the website. And I think that's pretty much it. Like Twitter, I'm not really that active on Twitter. I'm more of a visual person, so I suppose video and photos are what I'm concentrating on at the moment. And blog, like I force myself to write blogs and blog posts, but it doesn't come as easy as making a video, which is crazy because the amount of time and effort that goes into creating YouTube videos is crazy. But I actually really enjoy it. So that's why YouTube is probably my favorite platform.
Awesome. And I'll have links to all of that in the show notes for this episode as well. So if people are like me and they're not writing things down at the very moment, don't worry, you can just click on those links. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been so much fun. I wish we could go for like 4 more hours.
Yeah, we have to do this again because I have a bunch of questions for you based off my experiences that I want to, ask you about your experiences and your thoughts. So we definitely have to come back and do this. And maybe This Is a Man's World needs a podcast too. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to keep things simple and sweet. If you have any suggestions for the show, feel free to find me on Instagram and Twitter at CareerPod. In the show notes, you will find links on where you can find Michelle Hands and her YouTube channel, This Is a Man's World. Highly recommend you check it out. It is super funny. You're going to love it. If you've been enjoying the show, feel free to subscribe. And most importantly, if you can think of anybody that might find value in this content, share it with them.
This episode was written, produced, and hosted by Dana Francis. Editing, mixing, and additional voices by James Seabrook at Two Bodies of Water Productions.
Thank you so much for joining us. Till we meet again, stay passionately curious.